What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do a guitar setup. We did our video a couple of days ago about seasonal changes and having to do a setup, and there was a lot of requests in the comments to do an actual full setup from beginning to end and not just that kind of seasonal maintenance, one or two adjustments that you need to do. So we're going to do a complete setup. Here's the thing. I went through my guitars this morning trying to find like an appropriate one to do a setup on that like needed a bunch of stuff. And so it didn't exist because my stuff was, I kind of rotate it all through, so I kind of play it all. So I didn't really have one that was sort of wacky setup. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm going to put a new set of strings on this. I've got a set of D'Addario NYXLs here that we're going to throw on it. But before we do that, I've already taken the truss rod cover off. So let's just for funsies here. Whoops. Here, let me move those strings out of the way. And we're just going to, let's see. All right, so we're just going to take a couple of random back and forth turns on that deal to mess up the, and don't worry about what measurement is what at this point, because we're going to play with it later. But what I'm going to do is literally just take a couple of random turns here so that we can say, all right, let's mess that one up. I'm not really looking here. Okay, so I'm just gonna mess up the string height here on a few of these so they're kind of all over, plus the action is all over. Okay, all right, so that's sort of messed up. I just want to show you on camera so you understand what we're doing here. And then let's go ahead and play with the intonation too. So we'll just give these some random turns, maybe loosen that one, maybe tighten that one, maybe loosen that one, tighten this one, loosen this one, tighten that one, loosen that, whatever. Okay, so it's all messed up. So we've got a messed up guitar here, so sufficiently. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put new strings on it and come back to you. We won't waste time with you seeing us put strings on it. Before we do that, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and the like button if you like guitar stuff. Also, check out the link down below, DylanTalksTone. In fact, I'll put the little thing on the screen right here. We make pickups. We sell parts, pieces, caps, pots, switches, but our real thing is we make pickups. That's what we really do. So go check that out. Of course, the P90s in this guitar and this Texas Toast Challenger are mine. And yeah, so if you're ever curious about that, go look at that. Since we don't have sponsors, I just like to mention that. And also check out Patreon and the other ways that you can support the channel. All right, so we are back. I've got the Texas Toast Challenger with new strings on it. It's got NYXL 10 to 46s. The action is all over the place. It's all weird because we messed it up. Before we get started, let's go through a list of tools that we are going to use today. We're going to use our little StewMac tool kit for the adjustments on the bridge. We're going to use a truss rod wrench that I specifically like to use for this guitar, just the way it fits. It's a 4mm. We're going to use a capo. We're going to use a set of feeler gauges. We already used the string crank, so we're done with that. This is my favorite tuner for using this. This is a Peterson Strobe Plus HDC. So we'll do that with a guitar cable later when we start to get really, really specific. The controversial tool of the day, because I love this thing, and a lot of people on the internet think it's dumb, but it is amazing. This is a string height gauge. You can use just a regular straight edge measuring tool, but if you really want to be super accurate, this is the jam. If you have more than one guitar, you should get one of these. Little string cradle, or guitar cradle here. I guess pocket knife doesn't matter. That'll go back in my pocket. And then also, before we get started, we did use lizard spit fretboard polish on the fretboard before I put the strings on it. So this is where we start. So first of all, prerequisites for doing a guitar setup is going to be have your tools together, obviously, and have the strings that you're going to play on the guitar. And that means the gauge. So if it's, you know, anywhere from 7s to 12s to 14s, whatever you want to put on there, have the set of strings that you're going to use on that guitar gauge-wise on the guitar. Have it pre-stretch the strings, you know, after you tune it up a couple of times, and then tune the guitar roughly to pitch. You want it to be relatively close. It's not going to be dead on because the action's all goofed up, but you want it to be relatively close because we want all the tensions to be basically the same. In real life, you are going to want to do all of these measurements and adjustments in playing position like this. Because we're making a video, it's going to be horizontal so that you can see what we're doing, but you should do all of this in playing position. I am relatively confident in this guitar and the stiffness of it and everything, so I know that the measurements will come out just fine. One of the things that you can help if you need to do it horizontally is to have your neck cradle as close to the down here as possible so that you're not putting a bunch of bend in it. If your neck flexes so much that you're worried about your action, get a new guitar. Okay, so let's go ahead and take our first measurement, and that is going to be our neck relief. Now we know we messed it all up, so we are going to put the capo on the first fret. We are going to grab our 5/1000 feeler gauge, and we're going to, this applies to any guitar. We're going to find where it attaches to the body, and we're going to use that fret. We're going to go about halfway in between, and we're going to check the gap. It is huge. Now, depending on your setup, depending on how you play, you might want to play with how much gap there is here. We talked about this the other day. Do you want it totally flat? Do you want a little bit of gap? Do you want 5/1000s? Do you want 10/1000s? Look at the spec, Google the spec for your guitar, start there, and then adjust to your playing style. Spoiler alert, I'm going to set this bad boy all the way flat. So how do we do that? If we have a gap in here, like we do, this is a big gap, then we're going to tighten, righty-tighty, our truss rod, and that is going to bring the middle of the neck up so that we can take this gap away. Now, this is not adjusting the string height action. It does affect it, but this is when you say adjust the action on your guitar, that's not this. This is just determining the playing surface with the tension that is on the guitar. So, without further ado, let me put these two strings out of the way, and we are going to give this bad boy a good tighten up. Now, I know it needs to go a lot, so you should probably go about 1/8 of a turn or 1/4 of a turn at a time and give it a few minutes to settle out. I am pretty confident that I needed more than that. Still need some more. This is a dual acting truss rod, so we're actually across the neutral portion of it, and now we're on to the tightening portion. And we're going to go right there. All right, let's try that again. That's where I like it right there. When I put that 5/1000 in there, I want to grip it a little bit because I like mine almost totally flat. But when I tap it, I don't want it to have any back bow, so I just want a little bit of gap there, but I like my fretboards to be almost completely flat. You may not. You may want a little more. You may want 6/1000s, 10/1000s, but that's just how I like to do it. So we've determined the playing surface. So the next thing we need to do is we need to double check our nut to make sure that we have not had any excess wear. All right, so the way we're going to do that is we're going to take our nut height gauge. We're going to put him right there. I'm going to turn it on. We're going to 0 it. Well, here, let me 0 it, and then we're going to push down, and we see 12 thousandths. That's killer. I know that when Chris sets these guitars up, he likes them pretty tight, so we are going to just make sure. 11.5. 0 it, push down. 10. Flip this bad boy around. Keep going across. Now, you might see on your guitar, you might have some buzzes, and you might see something that you don't like. And you might need to adjust that. If you do, we can do a whole video on nut setup. But that's right where I like it to be. Basically 10 to 15, 10 to 12 across here, this whole thing, which is what I like to see. Now that's really low. Now I know that some of you are going to be like, that's way too low. Well, partially it's because we just adjusted the other neck. So what we might do is check it after we check our string height. So let's go ahead and go to the other end of the guitar and check our string height. All right, so the way we're going to do this is we're going to lock that down again. All right, we're going to 0 that. We're going to check it. 72. We're going to come down on that, baby. So we'll come over here and we'll go down, down, 0 it. I'm going to take her down to 65. See how you can be super accurate with this? You cannot be that accurate with a feeler gauge. You just can't. It's pretty awesome. And I'm going real fast here for the sake of a video, but you know, you get the idea. Now, I am being very even about this, making sure that I bring both sides of the saddle up at the same time so that these saddles are sort of flat, which that one is super wonky. If we don't move them evenly, what will happen is you will end up with, you can end up with rattles and loose, kind of like loose bolts, loose nuts. Now the next thing we need to do, because we've set our nut height, checked our nut height, set our string height, everything is done in that order. So neck relief first, check the nut, check the string height, everything's good. Next thing I'm going to do is, since we've messed around with everything, I'm going to go ahead and retune it to pitch as close as possible with a very good tuner, with as good of tuner as you have. And then we're going to set intonation. All right, so now we've got this thing relatively tuned up as close to possible as to pitch. So now we're going to go ahead and check our intonation. And we do this last because we're setting the final lengths of the strings while we compensate for the various gauges. So this is 24/7/5 scale. So the high E string is 24/7/5, and then all these other little adjustments are really to just compensate for the differences in the thicknesses of the strings. It's only a couple thousandths of an inch adjustment at a time, so if we were to do this before we did everything else, the lengths of everything would change because the heights and everything would all change, and then we would mess it up. So make sure that we do our intonation adjustment last. So here is how we're going to do it. We're going to go ahead and play our high E, then we're going to fret our 12th fret. And you see how it goes that way? So if I'm facing the tuner's going towards the bridge. So if I'm facing the tuner, with my back to you, but I'm actually facing the tuner, then the tuner's going toward the bridge. So that means that the saddle needs to go towards the bridge. So we're going to go ahead and tighten it up a little bit. We're going to retune that. And then we're going to check it again. Got to go a little more. Jeez. Guess I really goofed these up. Almost. Boom. All right, now let's go to the B. That one's got to go a little bit too. Just for the sake of being perfect, we're going to take that just a touch more. Oop, went too far. So since the tuner's going this way toward the nut, when we're facing the tuner, it's got to go back the other way. So we're just going to not overcorrect that. All right, G. Yeah, so there you go. It took about 10 minutes to set the intonation from crazy scratch. If you have set your guitar up and it's just a maintenance setup, obviously it's not going to take that long. The entire thing, shooting a video, took me about 40 minutes. If I'm not shooting a video and just doing it while I'm watching a movie or something, which is what I usually like to do, just watch some YouTube videos, throw on some Netflix, whatever, Netflix and set up, then I'll do that, and it'll take me about 15 minutes or so, not including changing strings, to just go through a guitar and make sure that everything is right. So what I would say is just go through it again in this order. Set your neck relief first. If you have too big of a gap here, tighten it to bring it up, loosen it to bring it down. Check your nut height to make sure you don't have any excess wear, although if it's not a new build, you're probably not going to have to worry about that too much. You know, the nut is just going to be what it is unless it's a really old guitar or a brand new guitar that's never been set up before, like a brand new build. When it comes from the factory, sometimes they can be a little high. Well, most of the time, if it comes from the factory, they're going to be a little high, and you might want to bring that down. If you want a video specifically about that, we can do that video too. About nut filing and etc. We can do that too. And then basically, so that, and then set your string height. Make sure that your saddles are, you know, flat and even as possible. That's going to be different for different guitars. Certain guitars, you're like on a Les Paul, you're literally just going to loosen or tighten both ends and set the high and the low E, and everything else just kind of is what it is, unless you want to start filing stuff, which most people don't. That's a whole nother video too, doing that kind of specific setup like on a Les Paul. And then set your intonation, which basically means if I'm facing the tuner and the needle goes this way, move the saddle this way. If I'm facing the tuner and the needle goes this way, move the saddle that way. If you run out of room on your screws and you're like, I have to take the spring out, I have to clip the spring, you did something wrong. If you have a commercially available guitar and it has a bridge on it, unless it is like a counterfeit from China, because I've had that happen before, but if it is a reputable brand from a reputable dealer that is a normal reputable guitar and you run out of room over here, you did something wrong. I can't vouch for all the knockoff stuff and all the stuff that people want to mod, but if it's a reputable brand and you run out of room on these springs, you did something wrong somewhere else. We're only compensating for a couple of thousandths of an inch here, so it's not that big a deal. Once that intonation is set, then you can go ahead and plug it in, set your pickup heights, which basically I just like to have my volume even between them as much as possible. So there's no real science there, just get it to sound how you want. I usually fret the last fret. I set the neck pickup kind of as high as I can get away with. Then I set the bridge pickup to be even to that. And if the neck pickup is still too loud, then I'll lower the neck pickup down a little bit and I'm good. That's basically what I do. And then on a Strat, I just kind of put the middle one where I want based on the notch positions 2 and 4. And that's it. That is a full setup on an electric guitar. If you have any questions, get in the comments. If you want to make specific videos about any specific particular part of this, I'm happy to do that for you. But at least that gets you a continuation of our last video and gives you an idea how to set up an electric guitar. I will leave links to all the proper tools in the comments below. If you use those links, I'll put in the pinned comment and in the description. If you use those links, it does help out the channel. So I would appreciate it if you did. And also go to DylanTalksTone and check out the stuff we make. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you in the next video.